Today, I'll basically talk about how we can use AI to achieve advanced analytics, primarily around risk management, customer insights in the area of regulatory compliance and audit. A quick introduction about myself. I'm the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer for Ai XPRT. I did my master's in AI computer vision from McGill in Canada. That was a long time ago, back in 2005. And since then, I've been working with different global technology players such as Samsung Electronics, Johnson Controls, Siemens, to name a few, before starting Ai XPRT. Some of the areas I've been working on: computer vision, computer graphics, virtual reality, augmented reality, machine learning, natural language processing, just some of the work. And in terms of myself, I am really passionate about converting ideas into solutions. I really feel satisfaction when I see something working. We started from an idea that this problem can be solved in a specific way. And then when I see it working, it really gives me a lot of satisfaction. Who are we at Ai XPRT? Why did we actually start this company? So our history started about 6-7 years ago. We were working with different organizations in many different areas, trying to use the latest AI technologies to solve certain problems. And then we realized the challenges. And essentially what we do is we offer the advanced analytics capabilities to our customers, who are primarily in the areas of regulatory compliance and audit, using latest AI technologies. In the end, that enables our clients both operational efficiencies. So not only they save, we claim that up to 90% of their time and cost, but also we enable them to overcome the risk. And that's the most important one. And I'll explain how it actually happens and what are the challenges. So our mission is basically to automate the mundane so that you can focus on the value. We have global presence and clients all across the world now. These are some of our key solutions. Comply Expert is to automate and do the risk management in the area of regulatory compliance. KYC Expert is for customer due diligence to manage the risk of anti-money laundering, and Audit Expert is on the financial audit side to overcome the risk of non-compliance with financial reporting standards. Some of our clients, primarily when we started, were focusing on financial institutions, audit firms, but now we are also extending to other areas like FMCG, oil and gas, food, marine, and so on. So I won't bore you with further slides on our introduction. So that was just a brief introduction about myself, for the company. Now let's look into the topic. And first, we need to understand what do we mean by advanced analytics. So how do we define them? And how do we differentiate them from traditional analytics, for example? So I think David has done a really good job, just set the scene in terms of the different type of analytics and so on. One of the challenges of different analytic solutions that we have is they work on structured data. If you don't have structured data, then you have to spend a lot of time on data cleansing. So before you could get any insight into your data, you have to convert it into a structured format. But the challenge is only 20% of the data which is available is structured. Rest of all the data is unstructured. It could be any file formats, any data formats. They're not set defined templates, and it could be text, unstructured text, could be voice, images, etc. And this is where the challenge lies. So one of the limitations of traditional analytics is it only works with structured data. And what happens when you don't have structured data? Then either you have to first convert your unstructured data into structured data, or you just do manual analysis. And this is what happens in most cases, that people just do manual analysis. But then due to the sheer amount of data, you cannot actually look into the all of data, and you cannot overcome the risk properly. So I'll explain some use cases and give you a few ideas as well. The other issue with traditional analytics is when you get some tools, they have predefined, pre-configured analysis capabilities. So mostly based on unsupervised machine learning, like pattern recognition, anomalies, and so on. But what if you want to do something new? What if, because you own the data, analytics is a very generic term. Essentially, it all depends on what you want to achieve from that, what kind of information you're looking for. The third area is what I would call that simple analysis. So traditional analytics, they gives you only simple analysis capabilities. You don't get deep analysis. So what do we mean by deep analysis? So if you want to look for something very specific that happens maybe in certain cases and doesn't happen in other cases, and you want to apply some conditional checks, you want to do some consistency checks across multiple documents and so on. How do you do that? This is where the traditional analytics doesn't help. And this is why, and this is where actually AI, the artificial intelligence technologies, can help to overcome these challenges. Advanced analytics using AI expert solutions, what we are doing is we are overcoming these challenges. So we are providing solutions that can be used to analyze both structured and unstructured data. So essentially, you can increase the coverage of your analytics or analysis to 100% of your data, and you don't have to do any pre-processing. The other important thing is our solutions. In the earlier presentation, you saw there is a huge demand for data scientists these days. But still, I mean, we have seen, because we have got a lot of data scientists in our company, and it's still a trait which is not very common. Our solutions basically enables people who have no knowledge of AI data science to actually perform the analytics, and they can actually define analytics themselves. So user-defined analytics, not like pre-configured, because in most cases, we don't even have seen the data, and we don't know what the user would like to do with that. So we just give a high-level framework, and then our end users, who are, as I mentioned, like in the area of compliance officers, auditors, risk officers, they just define their own analysis. They actually, I'll show, like, they actually teach the software what they're looking for, because it's AI. So it's all based on machine learning and deep analysis. So this is another important thing, that because it's about risk management, and they can actually do very customized, very detailed analysis in terms of like conditional checks or consistency checks or cross references, comparison, and so on. I mean, this is how we define advanced analytics. Like, there are different definitions, but this is one of them. And the whole idea is, how can we cover 100% of the data for analysis? How can we enable our end users who have no knowledge of AI data science to actually achieve that task? And instead of doing manual analysis where they have so many limitations, they can automate their analysis as well. So how does it all work? I mean, this is just a high-level overview of the way the entire workflow works. Like, 3 simple steps. We call load it, train it, and use it. So you put your requirements, you define what you're looking for. So you specify, like, it could be anything. And then you actually teach the software what looks good, what looks bad. This is what I'm looking for. This could be possible options. And the software learns from it. So it's based on machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision, so all AI technologies. And once you have done some training of the software, you can then use it. And like a human being, it's a continuous learning. So you do the analysis, you get the results, you review them. Maybe you want to change it. So it's not like one-off thing. You can just change the parameters. You can change the learning of the platform. So just like a virtual human being, it keeps learning and improving the analysis as well. So this is how the overall our solutions, they work, and this is how we have enabled AI to achieve the job. Now I'll go through some of the examples, some of the use cases to our clients in different areas. So this is one example of using advanced analytics for compliance risk management. On the right-hand side, you can see a few documents. I think living in the UK, most of us, we have got mortgages, maybe at some point, and you have to provide certain documents. You have to fill application forms, either directly with the bank or maybe through a mortgage broker. You get a letter from the bank like, okay, we are giving you the loan and so on. So there are quite a few documents which are associated with one customer. The challenge that was facing one of our bank was they had data of 250,000 mortgage customers from last 2 years. And they wanted to identify any risk of non-compliance with the FCA requirements around suitability of advice and affordability. So basically, they wanted to ensure that their mortgage advisors, are they doing their job properly? Do they understand FCA requirements? Are they following those compliance requirements? Is there any risk? But the challenge is, if you want to review this kind of data, like you've seen some examples, for one customer, it takes about 5 hours to complete manually. The traditional compliance analytics solution, they don't help because it's all unstructured data, and cleansing that data and all this is not simply possible, because there is text, you can see their numbers, there is scanned documents, like you give your bank statements as scanned documents and so on. You can see some advisor notes. So what were they doing? They were actually, so their analysis, instead of analyzing all 250,000 customer documents, they were only reviewing 25 cases, risk-based sampling. You can imagine, like, can you identify any risk by just analyzing 25 samples out of 250,000? It's like finding a needle in a haystack. So with our solution, they could specify what they're looking for. They created like advanced analysis where for a certain type of customer. So let's say if a customer lives in a certain area, and then if the customer, let's say, is a leasehold property, and if the ground rent is 0, then this is an exception. And what does the advisor say about that exception in the advisor notes? So they could actually create that kind of complex analysis or deep analysis using our solution. And as I said, it was all done by the compliance officers who had no knowledge about AI or machine learning. They didn't have to do any data cleansing. They could just use the data in PDF scan documents for that purpose. So no more sampling required. 100% data can be actually used for the analysis. So that was one use case. This is another example. This is about customer risk management. So in the previous example, it was managing the risk associated with internal employees. Are they doing their job properly? No, in this case, the customers, is there any risk associated with the customers that we have? So all the financial institutions primarily, but there are other type of institutions as well, they have to ensure that there is no risk of money laundering or terrorism financing associated with their customers. So how do they achieve it? So it requires analysis of a lot of data because they have to look into both the data they see from the clients, like their ID documents, their information provided by them. Also data available publicly, like sanction lists, PEP lists, Google searches, like they just do Google searches, adverse news information, look into company's house, Dun & Bradstreet reports, understand who are the directors, the shareholders, everything. Is there any risk posed by not just those people, but maybe their relatives or their close associates? Maybe someone is the husband or wife or spouse of someone else. So a lot of data, and it's all unstructured. So how do you unearth the risk associated with your clients? So what happens? It takes a lot of time just to complete that analysis. And still, I would say it's a shallow analysis because when you do a Google search, normally you take just 10 hits, 10 top results, and you just review them. What if there are 30 different people involved in a business and you have to review all of them? It will be a shallow analysis. So even you spend a lot of time, on average 30 days, you still are not able to fully understand the risk associated with your customers. The other challenge is the risk can change. Today, maybe there is a news about someone the next day, and then you need continuous monitoring. But because of the sheer amount of data and the time it takes, usually the financial institutions, they have review cycles. If it's a high-risk customer, every 6 to 12 months. If it's a low-risk customer, maybe every 5 years, you review them. This is the challenge that's posed by this unstructured data and a lot of unstructured data in the area of risk. So the way they are using our solution for that area is to analyze unstructured data. As I mentioned, Google searches, this kind of analysis, understanding the link analysis. So basically, who are you associated with and so on, and qualitative risk assessment as well. And then there is continuous monitoring. So, it's a computer, it doesn't get tired. So you can just keep looking into that risk ongoing basis. You don't have to review every 6 months or 5 years. The last example I have is on the audit side. One of the use cases, before an audit is complete, an auditor has to sign off a financial statement of their clients that it is all the data which is there is consistent. It's right representation. It follows the disclosure requirements posed by international financial reporting standards. Usually it's 100 to 200 page reports. It's all done at the moment manually because, again, you can see it's not structured data, it's unstructured. For every company, the financial statement will be different. The accounting policies will be different. The disclosures will be different. So how do you do that? So it's all done manually, takes from 1 to 3 weeks. We enable our clients in the audit side to actually automate that analysis using AI, and they can define their requirements, they can teach the software, and then they can automatically check financial statements all in 10 minutes. So these were just some examples, to show you how AI is enabling is today to achieve what was not possible a few years ago. A lot of the analysis which was either not possible or it was being done manually and we were just looking to fraction of the data now can be achieved using AI technology. I think that's the last slide. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, happy to answer.